Hello and welcome back. Well, I think all of my podcast guests are amazing. This week on the Wealthy Wellthy Podcast, I have a very special guest. My guest this week is a wildly successful trial attorney who specializes in fighting for the underdog and whose personal firms have won over $500 million for doctors from big insurance companies. He's an international speaker who's captivated more than 1,000 live audiences and whose stages include Tony Robbins, T-Mobile, and Walt Disney, just to name a few. A man who, though legally blind, inspires people to see and maximize their human and business potential through Unblinded Mastery, the company he co-founded and now leads. And he's a personal mentor of mine who I admire and continue to learn from. In fact, I'll be attending his live event later this month. You are going to love this episode. So it's my honor to introduce this week's Wealthy Wellthy Podcast, Sean Callagy.
Sean Callagy, welcome to the Wealthy Wellthy Podcast.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here, Christina. I appreciate you very much and looking forward to our conversation.
I'm so looking forward to this conversation today. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I've been watching you for a while, and I think we know a lot of people in common, one of which is Todd Hartley. I was talking to him yesterday, and he said, oh, tell Sean hello for me. We always meet up at the Tony conferences, and he's just such a great conversationalist. So anyway, Todd wanted me to say hello.
Yeah, I love Todd. Hello to Todd for sure.
Well, excellent. Well, let's dive in. Sean, you're just so amazing in so many ways. I know you probably hear that all the time. And what a life story and life journey. And I just see grit and commitment and desire and passion and purpose, and just all of the words are part of your DNA. And I think where you sit here today, it would be proof of that. And there's so many directions I could go with today's conversation. But where I like to start all of my podcasts is really just a little backstory, is that, talk to me about growing up, like when you first started to have memories. Like, tell me about that early formation. And I like to, what I'm listening for too is, it's kind of silly, but did you think you were special? Did you see that you were different even at a young age?
Thank you. I appreciate that, Christina. My answer would be absolutely no. I did not. My earliest memories were being in a crib at my grandparents' house, having wet myself. This is the truth. I've never said this publicly. I don't think I've ever been asked that question, my earliest memories, but that is my first memory, and just like crying. And my mom and I lived there in this tiny little room with my grandparents because my folks got divorced when I was one. My grandparents didn't have money. My parents didn't have money. And I remember that, but there was a ton of love. My next memory was just a little bit later than that. I was not quite 2 years old yet. And I was going down the street on Journal Square. It's an area of Jersey City, New Jersey. Footnote, we have an event coming up there soon. That wasn't a plugging thing. It just actually is factual. And I almost fell completely out of my aunt's car. So these are the days of pre-car seat. I opened the door. I remember a light going on. I remember hanging out. Somebody pushed me back into the car. I truly have no recollection of being pushed back in the car. My aunt was like freaking out, rode me back to my grandparents. I don't remember the ride back, but I do remember trying to hang sort of upside down on the two stairs to show my grandparents that I was falling out of my aunt's car, who was only a little bit older than me. She was older than me, but not that much older than me. She was 17, new driver. And so my Aunt Barbara almost had me fall out of a car to my death on Journal Square in Jersey City. And those are my two earliest memories, Christina.
I love that. And then tell me about childhood. Was it a good childhood? Was it a difficult one? And what I'm listening for is just the kind of that, where you noticed or where you started, like what was those original things that maybe happened that caused you to be, who you are today? Like, again, just those very beginnings.
Yeah. So my grandfather was blind. My mom, my family knew I was going blind from the time I was 5 years old. I didn't find out until I was 17. So from 5 to 17, I had no idea. But I developed a massive amount of empathy because my grandfather, number one, and he was strong. He was a powerful man, an amazing man. Didn't go past 8th grade, found a way. He and my grandmother found a way, but I just had empathy. I saw him talking at a table and then all of a sudden nobody was there and he was talking to himself, and I would intercede and I would go sit with him and answer the question. So I had this like hyper empathy, hypersensitivity of protection and caring for people. I just, was just present. I remember seeing the cartoon Charlotte's Web, and Charlotte at the end of Charlotte's Web dies, and she gives birth to all these baby spiders and they go forward in the world. I remember being so utterly sad that Charlotte died in Charlotte's Web. So there's like deep empathy present. And what was also present was people with unique skill sets. My dad was a big fan of James Bond. He was a fan of Batman. I became a super fan of Batman, watching it every day with my paternal grandmother. So there was this heroic thing kind of going on in James Bond, Batman, Robin Hood. These are all characters in our world. And then on the other hand, this like hyper degree of empathy. And what it brought me to was the heart, having a heart for people, especially the underdog, having a stand of, I wouldn't have known the term integrity, but like good versus evil was like very present for me. And third was very present for me was the ability to create very different results than other people. And that started to develop as I was also a huge sports fan. So I was a Met fan, a Jet fan, a Muhammad Ali fan. My Mets and Jets didn't win a lot. Muhammad Ali did. I became a fan of the boxer Sugar Ray Leonard. I was a huge, life disrupting presence for the Miracle on Ice. And I understood in all these elements, underdog and not, or favorite and underdog. I understood the difference of work and miraculous result, like the Miracle. I was 10 years old, hyper impressionable. My life was filled with family love. It was also filled with some level of family drama. My parents were divorced. They got along very well, but still creates dynamics. My extended family was super connected together. So it was like team, family, achievement, love, very, very present for me. And at 11 years old, for me, it was profound. A lot of people wouldn't be, which was more profound than me finding out I was going blind, frankly. We moved. And I was very connected. I was an athlete. I was succeeding in the town that I was in. And we moved from one town in northern Bergen County to another town in northern Bergen County. And it was about a 30-minute differential, no cell phones. It might as well have been a world away. Didn't see those people anymore. And I was deeply connected. And I had to start over. And starting over going into sixth grade, it was the summer right before sixth grade, was really painful. It was very hierarchical. It was very brutal. I wanted to move back. My mom lied to me and said we could move back. And she's like, well, I want to make it feel better. Thought you'd be fine. I wasn't fine. Like 1 year in, 2 year in, I just kept wanting to move back. And eventually, oddly enough, through the high school, so seventh grade, sixth grade, seventh grade were really bad. Eighth grade started to get good. Freshman year of high school got great. And I met some of the most profound coaches and mentors in athletics that any human being could be blessed to find. And I often say, I wasn't blessed with money, but I was blessed with love, and I was blessed with unbelievable mentors to model and to be coached and led by. So I'll pause there.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and I see that it appears as though because you felt you were so lucky to have had these outstanding coaches and mentors, especially at such a young age, that you see the power of that and and you continue to seek your mentors and coaches, but now as a kind of a mentor and coach and a leader yourself, it's that passion to say, hey, world, like coaches and mentors matter. And they matter so much, and probably so much more than you think.
And Christina, 100%. And I differentiate between the masterful, the just below masterful, and all the way down the chain. I think of things in a scale of 10. And 9.999, coaches, mentors, models are very hard to find. I was blessed with them all over the place. I also saw when I got to college, I also saw in some of the coaches my children had, some they didn't have, some that I had, some that other people had along the journey, that your coaches and mentors could also be brutally harmful. So I am very present to the power of masterful, integrous, and aligned mentorship, coaching. And I am very present to it could be anywhere on the continuum down from there. And when you start to get down into the 7, 6, 5, 4 category, it can move from, neutrally not helpful to brutally harmful. So yes, huge impact, massive, could cry in seconds thinking about all that I learned from people like Coach Woods, Coach Ennis, Coach Lazak, Coach Filato, heroes to me. And my heart breaks for people who didn't have that blessing. Like some people could be like, well, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I didn't have money. I'll take that over money any day of the week. So, and my heart aches for those that were poor in mentorship, modeling, and love. So yeah.
I agree. And, similar story that when I think back as well, coming from maybe a more difficult background, it was those coaches and mentors that had belief in me and maybe vice versa, but they kept me on a certain path and kept a certain trajectory that it could have been easy to go the other direction. So, but you said something there that, I really haven't thought about that before. I think about, coaches, let's say coaches and mentors and leaders in the sense of how powerful and how, important they can be to our lives. But I've really never thought about it like how destructive or detrimental they can be if it's the wrong coach or, like you said, like a bad coach. And it's so true. I just haven't really thought all the way out. And, today in today's world where it's like, it's almost everybody can be a self-proclaimed coach and mentor, quote unquote, influencer. How would you say, how would one discern between a masterful and just one that's like, say, hey, I'm a life coach now and I can help you?
You have brought tears to my eyes because my daughter, and I'll answer directly in a moment. My daughter was still is so hardworking. She was such an unbelievable hardworking soccer player. I mean, she loves soccer. I mean, posters of the U.S. women's team, models, mentors, a dream of being an Olympian, a dominant youth soccer player, coming into high school, starting as a freshman on a very strong team, and being seen as the greatest player in the school's history. Being convinced to not take a scholarship to what was a $60,000 a year high school in New Jersey, Dwight Englewood. In fact, a fun footnote in the movie Rounders, that's where Matt Damon and his friend went, and their dads were the janitors there and got in there for free. That's where my daughter was offered to go play soccer. And she was by her private instructor who had connections to Princeton. And her vision was, I was an Ivy League baseball player, was Princeton soccer player. Like that was the journey my daughter was on. And her high school coach, while my daughter, this wasn't a playing time issue, and my daughter's 4 years, they were the most successful 4 years in the team's history. I will posit, I will state, I will stand on that her being there was the core reason those 4 years were the most successful. Straight up, her leadership, her heart, all of it. And it was despite her coach, and her coach caused her to not want to risk ever being coached by somebody like that again. He was abusive. He was horrific. I wanted to get him fired. I feel like I failed my daughter because I let her mom and my daughter convince me to leave it alone, that it was a life growth experience. And I think that those can exist, but it can be far worse than that. And I've never talked about this on a podcast or ever publicly before. And it is heartbreaking. My daughter's got a 3.987 GPA currently in college. She's a 1A minus in all of college. If there were A pluses, she had over 4.0. She had numerous classes 98 and higher. And she loves soccer. And I know she misses it in her heart. She developed some elements of anxiety, other things from this brutally horrific coach. I'm not going to make him a beautifully horrific person, but his coaching was brutally horrific. So I've seen so many other examples of that, but that is the most profoundly present of what can happen when coaching goes wrong. And Christina, it goes wrong more than right. So how do we remedy that? What do we look at? We look at two simple things. Has the person done the things themselves? I think is very, very relevant. Have they done these things themselves? But there's a second question that could even trump it if they haven't done it themselves, because my high school wrestling coach, Stan Woods, was the most successful wrestling coach in the history of the state of New Jersey. He's got his own Wikipedia page. Another incredibly successful Northern New Jersey wrestling coach, Bucky Rehane, neither one of them ever wrestled. But there's a second question. Have they caused the success that you're seeking to have with others? And the answer for both of these incredible men would be absolutely unequivocally yes. So I think there's relevance to have they done it themselves, and there's a high relevance, but it is absolutely essential that they've done it with others, and the it is what you want. And if they haven't done that, even if they've done it for themselves, right? Then there's no way you want to work with this person. So they haven't done it for themselves, but they've done it with others. What you want, then you can go with it in a meaningful way, similarly situated, like true modeling, true relevant examples. And if they have not done that, run, sprint away, don't walk away, run and sprint. And that would be my how to assess whether or not you should be working with someone.
Yeah, thank you. And today, a lot of it's almost feeling at the mercy of the best marketers and maybe sales versus,
Yeah.
like you said, just two simple criteria to be able to maybe see through some of that. All right, let's switch gears a little bit.
If I could say this, that what you just said, Christina, really briefly, that is my mission. And has some people not like me. And I name names, and you can edit this out or not, but if people are being taught and mentored by Grant Cardone, who is out there publicly stating it's okay to be deceptive, lie in your marketing to gain attention and eyeballs, which he did when he said he was running out of money, his world was collapsing during COVID, which I still think may have been true. I don't even know what the actual truth is. Or that we want to close people and overpower people. And you hear things like this from Grant Cardone and Jordan Belfort. These elements, to me, are horrifying. That we would be developing people who are being mentored, coached, and led by people who would, from my money, be teaching negative vibrational techniques of manipulation, of closing, of causing things for people that will be out of integrity. That is horrifying for me. So I have a huge stand for not only integrity in the heart and intention, but also masterful competence and the alignment of both. Back to you.
Yeah, right on. And thank you for calling that out. Couldn't agree more. And it's everywhere. It's ubiquitous, so it's pervasive. And so that's part of why I want to, bring you to my audience, is because I love your voice. I love your stand. I love your pushback. I love you calling things out the way you see them, in an integrous and truthful way. So let's talk about this. And I study you. I study your work, and I'm a big Sean Callagy fan. And what I noticed, woven throughout everything that you say and do is this word integrity. And clearly this word means, it's a word, it's something we, I think everybody would find is an important characteristic. But what I found to be with you, like, this word has a real meaning to you. And I see that it's part of your voice and your stand and your mission, and your purpose is like, there's lack of integrity, and integrity needs to be put back into the system somehow. So I'm just really curious, like, what is integrity to you, and why is it so important?
Yeah, well, thank you for that again, Christina. And I want to acknowledge you. And yes, I do enjoy acknowledging people, but I only do it authentically. You're one smart human. Like, I'm present to that. Like, the depth of your listening, the sharpness of your questions, the precision. I saw that in our first conversation we ever had together, but I am clear that you're a straight up rock star, and that your discernment, I think that is an elusive mastery for people. It is very present for you, and I can understand why you've been as successful as you've been. So I just truly want to acknowledge that, and this is very enjoyable. Your questions are outstanding, and thank you for that. It's an honor. So this word integrity means that something does that which it purports to do. That's an integrous thing. That's an integrous system. It does that which it purports to do. The computer is in integrity because we're communicating through it. There's audio, there's visual, and it's in integrity. It works, right? So that's integrity. The thing doing what it purports to do. Magnifying that concept is the word transparency. So when we look at a situation and we're assessing whatever it is, and I have massive experience in 26 years in the legal world of all sorts of nonstop integrity breaches. I also have it in all sorts of ways in life experience and athletics. And omission can be as much a breach of integrity as an incorrect statement. So it isn't always telling the truth, because believe it or not, Christina, I tell people it's absolutely okay to lie. I believe in lying. And I'll come back to that in a second, which might be shocking. Maybe it's not, but I believe in lying. And I'll explain the limited circumstances in which I believe lying is entirely appropriate and actually called for someone to be in integrity, right? So that's going to be an interesting moment in a moment. But integrity is transparency, and it is adding more value than you take, right? So it's the intention, the desire authentically to add more value than you take, and transparency. Therefore, the thing does what it purports to do, and the thing can only be integrous if it does what it purports to do fully transparently, and it's adding more value than it seeks to take, whether it's price or energy or time, whatever the thing is. Tonight, we're going to do an event that's actually free. And yes, it leads to a larger event, but it's going to be in integrity, because the 5 hours people are going to spend is going to be so much more valuable than their time. And yes, there'll be a presentation opportunity to do something more, but it will be in integrity because it will be that which it purports to be. It will not be an infomercial. It'll be a powerful moment of adding value. Like that would be an example. And so when do I think it's okay to lie? Just to, more fulsomely, complete the answer. I believe it's okay to lie when you're dealing with people that are in what Robert Greene would call 48 laws of power, what I would call negative vibration, what I would call a lack of integrity. So if somebody approaches you with a hug and a smile and is like, hey, like, how are you? And so, hey, like, what were you up to last night? And hey, like, what'd you think of the thing? Right? And we know this person's intentions are non-integrous. We know that what they're seeking is an answer to cause manipulation. We know that they may lie about what we say or hold it in some form of false context to cause some other non-transparent outcome. I see this all the time in personal development ecosystem. I see in Platinum Partnership with Tony Robbins all the time. You go, you sell platform stage. What are you talking about? Yes. And I believe in Plat, and I believe it's a wonderful place and thing, unquestionably. And I believe there's integrity breaches that are relentlessly present there, as are in many personal development environments, as are in many. So that would be an example. And I would contrast that with where you know that people are in integrity, where they're transparent, they're seeking to add more value than you take, where you can have genuine misunderstandings with people about value assessment. That's something we can all have different perspectives on. But is it an integrous disagreement? Is it intellectually integrous? Or are we in some opposite thing, which I call fake confusion? We're pretending that we're not understanding value. We're seeking to take by being across the table as opposed to being on the same side of the table, and taking this lying piece to one more step. The US military, if it's dealing with terrorists, in the Revolutionary War, people were certainly spying, lying, doing things for what they perceived to be an absolutely integrous outcome. Now that gets really complicated and murky, but I do stand for the fact that when you're dealing with non-integrous, what you authentically believe to be non-integrous intentions, Ponzi schemers, criminals, people who are lying to you about why they're asking you questions or being nice and kind to you, then I no longer think at all it is your requirement to be, actually, integrity requires not being transparent and not even telling them the truth. And one more final footnote in this, Christine, I think, because it's at the core of everything I believe in. And I believe it is our responsibility to discern that.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a lot of beautiful, amazing people who have every intention of telling everyone the truth and loving everyone, who I believe are non-integrous leaders. Because to stay in their own comfort zone, they get hurt by people. And they let people that they're representing in their business, in their organization, in their spiritual pursuit, they let those people get hurt by non-integrous people because they are staying in a weaker form of leadership, not prepared to do what Jordan Peterson would say is to deal with the chaos, to deal with the dragon that's looking from a negative vibrational way to stop the positive vibration. So thank you for letting me answer that fulsomely, and back to you.
And thank you. I mean, thank you for that. I'm listening intently. And again, even when you say your three parts of, integrity, something that does which it purports to do, transparency. I would agree with both of those. But again, when I think this is the third one you add to it that I've never really thought through it this way, there's adding more value than you take, is that as a part of integrity. And I love that, is that's like the lens or the frame to see this through. Like, am I integrity? Am I just trying to take, is this just a marketing gimmick, or is this just a, flip and switch? Or like, no, we're going to deliver full value here. And like you said, maybe there's something at the end, but in full integrity, we fully delivered. And I can feel good about that.
And one of the big challenges that, a couple of challenges I have in our work at Unblinded is a lot of folks say to me, why do you do all this? Dear friends who make incredible amounts of money, have multiple private jets in the space of coaching and training. And one of, our dear folks in our work and very close to me, Bella Verita, also known as Stephanie Vihan, will say the difference between what I see with you and the rest of the space of human acceleration is that so often it's all about, how do I give the least and charge the most? Like, how do I give the least and charge the most? And our work is certainly not how we charge the least, but how do we give massively? We do huddles every day, deep practices every day. We're Tuesday, Thursday night calls, like individual coaching, group coaching. Everything we're looking to do is to find, modules, more and more ways to add value. And the same thing happens when we run free events that we do. The people in the team are even like, dude, like, we got to get to the sale earlier. And I'm like, I will get to it when I get to it. And I love you and I want to be in integrity with you, but understand this, I'm never going to get to us making a presentation offer until I'm clear that we've delivered the value promised. I may misunderstand that at times. I may overgive, but I'm going to make sure I overgive, do not undergive. And yeah, somebody could walk out and go, oh, see, they just want to sell us something. It's going to happen anyway. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. But what I am talking about is I want to make sure inside my entire nervous system, my heart, my soul, my nervous system, I know that we did what we proposed to do in that time frame. And that's what I mean by adding more value than we take.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, you get a law degree and you build a law, you work for a top law firm, then you start Callagy Law. You're doing great. You're building one of the fastest growing, most successful law firms in the country. And you could have stopped there and kept going there. So what I'm curious is, what was this pivot point where you wanted to do this unblinded thing and really like get just out of the vertical of law, where you were one of the best trial lawyers and had one of the best, again, law firms, and we're doing a lot of these things. But yeah, what made you want to take on this new thing and develop it and grow it into the mission and vision you have for Unblinded?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for that. Very clear. A couple quick things. So when I leave, so it is 1997 when I quit my job at one of New Jersey's most prestigious law firms, 6 months out of law school. Over the next 2 years, I built a 40-person law firm, which was unheard of in my 20s. But people are like, that's crazy. I've spoke to people all over this country in every legal organization imaginable, and nobody's ever heard of anyone doing that unless they just brought a few different teams from different law firms together. Like, I generated all the work to keep 40 people busy, right? That was unheard of, like, anywhere. But here's the fun part. When I quit my job at that large law firm, I had already discovered the work of personal development. People like Tony Robbins, Jay Abraham, Jerry Spence, who's a lawyer, but in the space of teaching influence and heart and all sorts of beautiful things. Robert Anthony, how to make a fortune from public speaking. And I literally, Christina, and this sounds like revisionist history, Paul Bunyan tales, it is the truth. I started that law firm to see if Tony Robbins, Jay Abraham, Jerry Spence, Robert Anthony were telling the truth or lying. I set out to prove to myself what was possible, not the same way I did athletically and peak performance. And I said, if this works, I'm going to go teach other people how to do it. And then as I started to roll through it, I saw things were very complicated and some things are really not clear. So I said, I'm going to come up with the formula that synthesizes all of personal development. That's the game I'm playing, to take everything that's out there and make it as simple as possible, as Einstein would say, but not simpler. And this was occurring in 99, 2000, 2001. In 2002, I sell my law firm, right? 2002. And I was going into coaching school to get certified. And I became a certified coach in 2003, the infancy of coaching. But to be crystal clear, my intention was always to be a coach. There's more threads around that, which I won't go into in this moment. But I created my original law firm for the express purpose of actually taking forward my work in the world of personal development. Excuse me. So I apologize for a little bit of noise in the background for 10 seconds. And then I discovered in 2003, 4, 5, 6 that coaching and training was a nights and weekends business. And that work was really hard. And I had young children. I didn't want to be away from them. So I literally said in 2006, I'm going to pause on this whole coaching thing. I built the most successful coaching business out of my coaching school, applying the same formula that we teach now, that I built my first law firm with. I said, I will come back to it. So I built a second law firm. So the first law firm was the law offices of Sean Callagy. I exited successfully for multiple seven figures. I then built the coaching company. I then went to a place of building Callagy Law. We built Callagy Law into the most successful law firm of its type in the state of New Jersey, the most successful law firm of its type in multiple categories in New Jersey. It is now the most successful law firm of its type in the country in medical revenue recovery for doctors. And I said I would always go back and take this work to the world when my kids got older. So in 2018, this was just literally a 12-year pause that I had a beautiful life. I was a business owner, not operator. I never went to law school in the first place because I wanted to be an attorney. I went because I didn't want to be blind, broke, and an alcoholic. So by 2018, I was like, yeah, business owner, not operator. We could still continue to expand the law firm, do beautiful things, but I'm here to take this formula, this work to the world because my kids are older now, senior in high school, sophomore, freshman. They were busy. I wasn't coaching all their teams, doing all these things. And that was always the why. And then it was the time, it was like the when had occurred.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that story. So let's jump into where we are now. And there's so many things. Again, I love studying the masters. I love studying business. And I see both of those in you, Sean. One, just again, your commitment to mastery. And I love how you break it up: self-mastery, process mastery, and influence mastery. And, working with your team and again, going through a lot of your work personally. In business, for example, what I notice, like the great business leaders, is they create a culture. The culture, the team, the players on the team, they're aligned and they're all like is passionate about the business achieving the mission and vision of the founder and CEO, which is you. And then the language, the nomenclature. And I just love everyone on your team. And I'm just curious, like, how do you do this? Because you've got the language of Unblinded. Like everybody speaks the same language on your team. Everyone is so excited to bring your mission and vision to the world. You guys are playing big. There's no small play and there's no small players. And so part one of that question is like, what drives you and motivates you? Like, what is this? Like, you don't have to do this anymore if you didn't want to. So what is this pull or this driver in you that has you just wanting to take this work literally to the world and the biggest audience as possible? And then two, how do you create your team where they're all on the exact same page and speak the same language that you've invented, that they've adopted?
Thank you. Tears to my eyes for the second time today. My family, my high school coaches, Tony Robbins, and then the world. I'll put that together really quickly. So I grew up, as I said, in a perfectly imperfect family. My dad had serious alcohol problems, still does. So there was definitely pain. I won't drop in any deeper than that for right now. I don't hide that. I talk about it someplace. There's a lot of pain, a lot of fear. I wasn't beaten and abused, but I was really scared of my dad. And I really couldn't stand his drinking. So that was like a present thing. And his mom, though, was unbelievable. And he was beautiful to me in many ways, taught me what not to do, taught me what to do. I certainly effectively blame him and effectively love and thank him. His mom, my grandma Rose, and my mom's entire family were unbelievable. I mean, just so unbelievably loving, number one. Number two, my high school coach, as I mentioned, created such teaching and mentorship, but also the culture that you described. So this incredible family culture. I had this incredible team culture in high school. And my friends and I would use this sentence and say, hey, they don't get it. Or, hey, he gets it. They don't get it. He doesn't get it. She doesn't get it. Like, he gets it. She gets it. What that meant, we didn't know what the it was exactly, but it meant this higher level of understanding, what I would now say was integrity, like genuine team integrity. That's what that it meant. And it was just present. It was key performance. It was love. It was transparency to stated mission, vision, purpose, and everyone committed to add more value than they take, from the coaches to the players. I grew up in a very nice middle-class town, Emerson, New Jersey, that was the hotbed of hotbeds in a public, tiny little high school where most kids' dads were cops or teachers or, plumbers, whatever. Like, this is what it was, right? And I grew up in this hotbed. And I went to college and played baseball at Columbia, and it was nothing like that. And I had a super successful college baseball career. In fact, my college baseball career was even more successful than my high school baseball career. So selfishly, it was amazing. Team, nothing like it. I went into that law firm and I told you I quit my job. I was in law school, nothing like it, nothing like it. I would give my outlines away. I would want to help people and serve people and work with people. Law school wasn't like it. My first law firm wasn't like it. And I said to myself, I am going to create that. We had in high school football the love that was present, the same things that were present in my family, but it was even more masterful in my high school athletics. It was even more integrous, even in my beautiful family. I'm going to replicate that in the world. And I did a pretty good job of it in my first law firm. Pretty good. Not perfect. I had a lot to learn, came close, in a lot of beautiful ways. Incredible culture, blew away anything else I've ever seen in the law. People say all the time, but it still wasn't that. When I grew up with my coaching and training company, the first one, it was even better than the first law firm, but it still wasn't it. Like, it still wasn't what high school athletics were. Then when I went and started my second law firm, like, I'm going to get this right. I'm going to bring this here. And I got real close. I mean, real close. And it's still real close, but still wasn't there. Platinum partnership with Tony Robbins. It wasn't that either. It was close. Not that. Unblinded is that. Unblinded is the recreation in this platform of what we had in high school athletics. The people that I had the privilege of working with, Nicole Maiello, my co-founder, Adam Gagino, Fernando Valencia, the rest of the incredible team, your beautiful friend, Sarah, and of course, Gina, and people like Stephanie Bell and Frida Vihan, and on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Now with its intersections with Callagy law, it is beyond what I had in high school. It's beyond it. And I want that for everybody in the world, because to have that is the greatest thing. I've had so many individual successes, which I'm grateful for. I thank God I could be on my knees for it. But the greatest successes I've ever experienced in my life where somebody else was the hero and I was just part of the team. That's what it was in high school. That's what it is now. That's why the ultimate success of Unblinded will be when I'm in the last row of an 80,000 person stadium, watching that 80,000 person stadium and thousands of stadiums like it across the country, because that's what high school athletics were. We beat Hasbro Kites my senior year. I didn't catch a pass. I didn't score a touchdown, but I did my job and played almost every play in that game. And we did the impossible, beat Hasbro Kites for our brother Roy, who had his spleen taken out, all names you don't know, things you don't know, but is rooted in my heart. And when the game was over and we did the impossible, beat Hasbro Kites in front of 3,000 people on their field, we wept, hugging each other, crying, weeping, saying, we did it, we did it, we did it, we did it. And that's what I want to replicate every day of my life, is my children experiencing that as they did in their youth athletics so beautifully, and me experiencing that are the greatest moments of my entire life. And I want that for everyone, to do things with an integrous team of people who love each other. There's nothing greater. And that's why I do what I do.
Wow. And I just love that you've been trying to recreate for your entire career this very specific feeling and this, like you said, this team and this culture, and where you're weeping together at the end, because it is such the team thing. And And here you've created it after, all the years of experience. So let's talk about, just real quick, you talk a lot about, we'll just go straight to business now.
Yeah.
Ecosystem merging, and I've done your influence mastery. I've been in sales my entire life, and actually I'm going to jump around here a little bit. So I'm going to start with, I've been in sales my entire life, one way or another. I've done all the sales programs, probably you have too, in your beginning days. And then when I came across your work, that was really where I started paying attention. I'm like, who is this Sean guy? Like this is so different. This is what, sales is supposed to be. And I was even trying to reinvent it myself, but just couldn't quite do it. And then you simplified it. So I kind of noticed that this influence mastery and like the sales piece was kind of the beginning of some of the unblinded work. What was your desire there to want to recreate this word that we call sales? And in your case, ecosystem merging and relationship creation. But again, what's the genesis from that? And then two, talk about sales and why you're doing this to get out of the word like closing and pitching and, just some of these more, pipelines and things that have been part of the sales narrative forever.
Well, thank you for that. So it all relates to everything we talked about, for sure, with the heart, the integrity, the transparency, the feel. And I believe that 1 + 1 equals a lot more than 2. And all the examples I've given, from family to Unblinded to the Callagy law firms, to me, having a responsibility to pay somebody $500,000 under an agreement and instead paying them $1 million, and us crying and weeping together. Like, those are the greatest feelings in the entire world. Like, I just straight up. And when I had completed my athletic journey because of my eyesight and going blind, and was not moved on to play professionally, like, I just didn't want to be blind and broke. I did not want to be an alcoholic. A lot of people in my family who were blind were alcoholics. So I had this vision of, okay, I have money and I have financial abundance. I didn't even understand what that meant. Somehow, Christina, I graduated from Columbia University and law school, literally not understanding anything about business. Like, that may seem like an overstatement. That may seem like another mythical tale. It's the truth, because I didn't care about it. I hadn't connected to it in the way I connected to peak performance. In fact, I had them disconnected. And then when I learned that law was not a meritocracy, that instead it was a marketing and business thing, I was horrified, because to me, sales and marketing were dirty and disgusting. They were manipulative. They were something lower vibrational. They were the antithesis of getting it, like we did in high school athletics. And I was wrong. I wasn't fully wrong. I was wrong when it was at its best. And what Tony Robbins helped cause me to see as a pivot innovation, his work in transformational vocabulary, in his book, Awaken the Giant Within. He didn't talk about this directly, but it was the work I began to do. I began to become present to how powerful vocabulary language was. Why, when we did jumping jacks at Emerson High School, and EFERSON, tears would well up for us. It was the power of language, the power of spelling out our school. When we would say, people would chant, "Let's go Cavos," or the Cavalier shortened Cavos, the power of language, and reflecting back on how my coaches communicated with me and how our family spoke and what we spoke about, I realized that marketing and selling needed this disruption. But first, I needed to occur inside of me. And I began to realize that if you could bottle up what I had in high school athletics and sell it, you're going to have a big problem, because people wouldn't know the difference. And it was an ethical and integrous responsibility to bring truth to the best work. Me as a lawyer, I was a rock star. This formula, this work, what I developed in ways during law school and moot court, and I was building the formula early on, my skill sets were profoundly, uniquely impactful. The leadership skills I developed in high school athletics and being captain of my college baseball team and confronting people, being an emotional, visceral leader, all of these things caused my skill sets as an attorney to be so much different than everybody else 1 year out of law school. And all these people would talk about a false framing of how to choose your lawyer, years in practice. How ridiculous is that? My abilities crushed these people. And I saw it then. I began to reframe it, thanks to Tony's work, all the other work I've talked about, and see that marketing and selling was my ethical, integrous responsibility. If I didn't do that, people with real problems would end up in the hands of lawyers that would not only not help them, but could hurt them. And that was the beginning of the reframe. And then I'm like, well, what if it was reframed that way for everyone? And what if everybody understood how to bring that truth forward? Because if you were an integrously skilled expert, accountant, lawyer, coach, realtor, whatever, but your skill sets in bringing that truth forward cause people to run away from you, well, you weren't going to be able to help people that you should be able to help. And I saw that as my dual responsibility of reframing both marketing and selling and how people approach serving clients. That became a core piece. And then that was the beginning of the formula, the genesis of all the language shift, because vibrationally, if I'm like, hey, if you weren't present, I'm like, yeah, I just had a great conversation with Christina. I think we can close her for this or that. You'd be horrified. You'd be disgusted because it's not transparent. It's objectifying. Objectifying is a lower vibration. Pitching is objectifying or being objectified. I don't pitch people. I share powerful possibilities that are fully integrous. Pitch, yuck. Hook, gross. I open listening. I touch hearts. Closing, I form agreements. I don't close anybody. I bring truth forward. I support people in taking steps that make sense mutually, where I have more value than I take. Funnels, I want to be in a funnel. I want to put people in a funnel. Like, what are they? Water, cattle, like the objectified items. And that's the vibrational energy shift and the foundations, the reframing and my work in the world. And one of my great challenges, Christina, is, I can get framed as culty. I get that, right? It's not true. I'll give you 14 reasons why that's not true. But I could, it's a cult, or, hey, like they've chosen like this language just to make themselves look cool and different, but it's not that at all. There's a vibrational energy differential in true leadership versus saying, oh yeah, like I want to have followers. Like there's as different as night is from day. Like, I don't want to have followers. I want to cause leadership. And that's not just a languaging differential. It's an intention, a vision, an energetic differential. And that's just a sort of macro piece of the power of language applied to marketing and selling, the reframing, the progression of the science of it, all in just a couple of minutes. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit.
Yes, it does. And I think the biggest takeaway there is working with a lot of business owners or trying to be successful business owners, they like you early on, they object to this word called sales and marketing, thinking it is manipulation and it's icky and it's these things. And so the importance of the reframe there is, one, that it can be, that maybe this old way of doing it, but if we don't master the skills of sales, or in your words, influence mastery, then if we're masters of what we do, it's actually hurting people that they're working with somebody else versus us, because we don't have those skills to be able to share with others how we can help them.
Yes, amen all the way. One of my most enjoyable moments ever, one of the most fun moments of my life, outside of the athletic realm and in the business realm, was being on Tony Robbins' stage and presenting Platinum Partnership. And the people who went before me were not connecting with the audience, and they were like pushing, pitching, like, right. And I stood up, I went up, I'm like, oh boy, I got to follow this. And there's, 3,500 people in the room. And it was, I think, Las Vegas 2019. And I went up on stage and I said, hey, do you sense now? Do you feel what I feel? Do you feel the energy of like sales, like yuck in the space? And I could literally feel Scott Humphrey in the back of the room. This is Sage Robbins, Tony's wife's brother, Tony's brother-in-law. And I can't see him. I can't see. And he's, 100 yards away from me in the back of this seismically massive room. I can literally connect empathetically to him and feel him stop breathing. And we shattered the record for most people stepping forward into their future at that event. Sage came out and later thanked me, but that's integrity, because that's what everyone was feeling. And if we avoid it, we're not dealing with it, and those people would not step forward into their future. And yes, that is the space for sure, that sales can be gross and disgusting, and marketing as well, or it could be beautiful, integrous, and one of the most powerful, effective things you could do for a human being that can actually save their life. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you. And, and it's another thing that I notice about you, and you use the word mastery a lot. Obviously, that's your. It's about the quest to mastery for all of us, one way or another. But to, just to witness true masters to me it really does bring me chill bumps, and because I know it's not an easy road to master things. Like, it's a different level of commitment, it's a different level of love, it's a different level of passion, it's a different level of desire. It takes, it's a different level of dealing with failure and setbacks and pain in many cases. And so what I see in you, Sean, again, I just want to shout this out and appreciate you publicly, is what I notice, your commitment to mastery, and watching you are a master of this process of it's just embodiment. It's embodied like who you are, and watching you and your work is just really a privilege. Again, it's like it's watching the greats be in their greatness. So again, thank you for what you do, and thank you for sharing it, because it helps others like myself become better. And it's making it available to everyone.
Christina, again, your beautiful colleague, Sarah Thompson, is wonderful at reminding us of this quote. We see in others what we have in ourselves. And I believe you see that in me, because that is who and what you are. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, one final thing before we wrap up with a few final questions. And this has been, again, I wanted to just hear you say this. And because, again, it was a real shift for thinking. I always notice, like, wow, that's a big shift. That changes everything. Those little bitty things, you hear it differently and it changes everything. And the way it was spoken to me was where you speak about there are these three human needs, which are money. What is it? Money, time, and magic.
And magic, money, time, and magic. Yeah.
So I'd love for you to just speak very quickly on those, because this seems such an important part of your work and what you're sharing. But then these four values, that is, we're working to, as business owners and entrepreneurs, to grow and to expand. When I heard it framed this way, like, this is a way to do this by merging ecosystems, like you said, using your language. But these four values around identity, relationship capital, unique skills, and monetary capital. So can you explain that framework and what you mean by these seven?
Yeah. So thank you. So my commitment to mastery was based in studying people like Batman, James Bond, fictional, Muhammad Ali, the Miracle on Ice team, non-fictional, and many more, Bruce Springsteen, Tony Robbins. So the Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi-Do-san, Yoda, Star Wars, fictional, non-fictional. So I was very present to all of it. And as we began to move through the space and time of doing that, and I did it myself personally, athletically, I was always looking for lowest common denominators. And I wasn't perfect in math. In fact, I failed freshman high school geometry because I didn't do my work. I wasn't being masterful at all. But I was always present to the fact that lowest common denominator made sense. So baseball is like visualization, workout, increase bat speed through gamifying hitting in the batting cage, right? Like, that's how I got better. I simplified it into very simple verticals that were very measurable. So I began to think about, hey, in space of coaching, training, and human acceleration, what do people want? It's a lot of words, to describe what people want, but let's really distill it down. If people don't have money, they can't function. And that money, by the way, so we're real clear, could be somebody making $47,000 a year. It could be the money they want and need. It could be somebody living in Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, having enough money each day from begging, from panhandling, to have enough to buy a can of soup or alcohol or drugs. I'm not judging the amount. For some people, it's $2 billion a year, right? I don't think too many people make $2 billion a year, but a few people do, and it might be that. So it's some level of money. And if that's not there, people do not focus on anything else, right? Like, if it's just not there, and even their health, people will still have to focus on money before their health, because they have to pay their health bills in a capitalist structure like the United States. Money is so primally there. It is the resources of life. It's food, it's shelter. It is the most basic form of life. And if it's not there, we perceive it will destroy our health. So money is first. Then when we have money, I believe we move in a time which is having freedom of choice. It's like, okay, I have the money. How can I make that in less time so I have more freedom to do other things, right? Then we have all the money and time in the world, which very few people get to. Some people do. I've had the blessing and privilege of getting there. I believe you have as well, Christina. Then it's, okay, now what? And we can label that a lot of ways. People could label fulfillment. I like the word magic. I think people just don't want fulfillment. They want magic. And I believe fulfillment is a subset of magic. It just vibrates more to me than fulfillment. You can call whatever you want, but it's the rest of it all. And it's the pride, the adventure, the other human needs we have other than the basics of money and time, right? So money, time, magic, because I want to understand where people are so I can help them accelerate. And what I think people really have a challenge with is they try to get all three simultaneously. And if you're trying to get magic and money, it's really, really difficult. So I coach and train people to get really clear. What do you need to like create a clearing for you, a true clearing for you financially? And let's focus on that. Doesn't mean you're going to be out of integrity, right? It's integrously getting to that money. And then let's focus on time and then magic. So that's basic framework. And what supports all of that is this concept of ecosystem merging. People say, oh, you mean like joint ventures? No, I don't mean that. You mean like strategic partnerships? Well, warmer, and both joint ventures and strategic partnerships are subsets of ecosystem merging, but I mean something that's more expansive, more rich, and more complete. And then it was, well, what goes into an ecosystem merger? And it's those things you mentioned: identity, like who we are in the world, relationship capital, monetary capital, teammate with unique skill set. See, for example, Michael Jordan and Nike. And Michael Jordan brought a massive identity to Nike. Nike had the relationship capital. They had people buying stuff. They had people coming through. Michael Jordan, Nike equals massive value expanded. By the way, Nike also brought monetary capital and some unique skill set how to promote and market, put all the things together. But Jordan brought that identity as the world's greatest basketball player, something super incredibly cool. Nike brought the other three. That's why Michael Jordan made $1.3 billion with his partnership with Nike. They made $20 billion, and he made, or they sold $20 billion. I don't think they profited because they had cost of goods sold, all those things. They profited in the billions. He profited 1.3 billion or made 1.3 billion, and he made 90 million playing basketball. But it's the same thing when I go speak at a chiropractic event, which launched my law firm 26 years ago. I brought the unique skill set. I was a speaker, right? I brought that unique skill set to galvanize the energy of the room, to create engagement, which is what they want. They had the relationship capital, they brought the monetary capital, they had the identity. I had none of those three things, but I had the unique skill set. I lit the room on fire. Tom Brady brought the unique skill set in the beginning of quarterback, winning Super Bowls. So when you bring those four things together optimally, it creates massive abundance in money, in time, in magic. Two other quick 10-second examples. I came together with somebody, person of YouTube influence, Chris Crone, and I went on stage. The most he ever raised before was $14,000. We raised $2.6 million for the Ukraine. After I was on a stage, I brought the unique skill set of sustainable giving. I also brought a bunch of identity because I had a legal background. I spoke on Tony's stage. I had identity in a lot of big corporations, and I had the unique skill set. He brought the incredible relationship capital, the already assembled audience, and then the audience brought the capital that ended up changing so many lives in the Ukraine. That would be another example. So how it's sort of like Lego, like Legos. When you become a master of assembling identity, relationship capital, monetary capital, team unique skill set, you put those four things together, and you have 1 + 1 can equal 1,000,000,000,000. It's Bill Gates, IBM, and the dude in his garage who had the operating system for all computers. It's Facebook and its co-creation of ecosystem merging with everyone. I'm not saying I love Mark Zuckerberg. I believe and agree. I love him. I'm not saying I like him. I'm not saying I agree with everything he does, but he ecosystem merged with every household essentially in the world, businesses, people, things. And it's 1 + 1 equals so much more. It is Jeff Bezos and Amazon. And as we become masterful at seeing how that micro applies in our life, that's how you double, triple, quadruple your money, create your time and magic. And I'll pause there, Christina.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, I could talk to you forever and ever. To final things, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. First of all, before I forget, I'm going to be at your July event, so I can't wait to see you there. But just very quick, talk about the event and why people should go. I'll make it very easy for everybody to obviously find it in the show notes, but I'd like them to hear it from you.
July 13th through 16th, the Influence Immersion in Jersey City, New Jersey, looking at the Statue of Liberty and the Freedom Tower. We will be freeing people, not by firewalking. It's not a Tony event. It's not a just an inspirational event, which is beautiful. It's not even a how you run your human psychology event primarily, a little bit of that, but it's about how you cause yes with people. And the Statue of Liberty and the Freedom Tower, neither of those exist without the causing of yes. Neither does New York City, not does the plane people fly on, not does the money in our bank account. And we will be unleashing and actualizing, not just teaching, we actualize, do deep practice, meet super cool people, have a ton of fun. This is what this event will be about. And it is the greatest training on human influence in the world, bar none, fact, said by huge corporations, super successful people. Tony Robbins himself said, nobody leaves more heart and integrity than Sean Callagy. If you don't know what he's up to, you need to. Across the spectrum, Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul, has built our program, training Disney, T-Mobile, Salesforce, and lawyers, accountants, financial service providers, people in very traditional professional licensed businesses, doctors, and others. All of these fine folks like this will be assembled in New Jersey, rising their influence, having incredible amounts of fun, and actualizing. And it is the perfect way to get a sense of who and what we are, not just in the technology, the content, but in that culture and spirit, Christina, you mentioned earlier. And that's what's happening in New Jersey, July 13, 14, 15, 16.
Well, great. Well, I encourage anybody to join me. I'll be there. Can't wait. And I really can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. All right, just final few wrap-up questions so you can get on with your day, because I know you've got 10 billion things pending after this. So the first thing I like to ask is say, Christina, if you really, 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 really knew me, you would know that. You're a public figure. If I can go, anybody could research Sean and find out all the things, but what's something that very few people know about you?
My greatest challenge is I avoid when I really love and care about people, and I really don't like conflict. I'm great at it, and I really don't like it. I just want to love everybody. But I do pick up that mantle as the reluctant warrior, like Rambo in the first movie. It's like, just let me keep walking. And yeah, I really don't like conflict, but I will bring it to serve justice as is relevant and necessary.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I relate. Talk to
Yeah.
me about you've had numerous successes and accolades and accomplishments. What's a success you're most proud of?
The father I am, and that my kids played 1,000 sporting events, and because I understood this formula in Money, Time, and Magic, that I missed 9 sporting events my kids played in, other than the ones that conflicted with each other. And I hold that as the core of my existence. And I love them and what they feed into. I'm doing all of this because they're busy and they have beautiful lives, and I love them and we have great intersections. But selfishly, if I was selfish, I wouldn't be on a yacht. I wouldn't be rolling with celebrities. I'd be spending 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with my 4 children.
Wow, thank you. And you've been able to succeed at the level you succeeded and be a great father that attends everything. So another great example. On the flip side of that, tell me about a failure or that moment, like one of your darkest moments where you're like, how did I get here? And this is horrible. And you weren't quite sure if you're going to survive it, but you did. And it ended up being one of the best teaching moments.
My first divorce from the mother of my 3 children. I could have tried harder. I tried real hard. And I wanted coaching, counseling stuff. And I didn't feel like it was reciprocated. By the way, I love, my first wife. She's an amazing human being. We co-parent, we live, still to this day with our children being 23, 21, and 19. We live 3.2 miles apart. We went to the Bruce Springsteen concert recently, with our children, right? Like we do stuff. But that process, because I had been seen as the golden child and as almost perfect, I certainly wasn't. I didn't profess to be. And there was a lot of heat that came on me for getting divorced in that first divorce from people very close to me, my family, and people who thought that, I should get divorced and I wasn't being, supported in ways that I should be supported with all that I brought and all that I gave. it was my first time realizing that people are going to tell you certain things and then they're going to disappear really quickly when you act on the things they tell you. And it was a very lonely, dark, scary time. That was the loss of innocence in very meaningful ways for me. And that was right around the time I sold my first law firm. It was a very, very complex and painful time in my life. And I know I could have done better. I know I could, I'm not saying that we would have made it, but I told myself a story for a long time. I did everything and I didn't do everything. So I'd say that was the greatest failure of my life.
Yeah, again, thank you for being so vulnerable and personal. And one other personal question that I'm curious about is, you're legally blind. This started happening, what, at 17? How have you not made that an excuse? And, I mean, has it been more of a motivator? Like, how do you do what you do and being blind? I mean, it's amazing.
Thank you. Well, because I didn't want to be blind, broke, and potentially an alcoholic. I never had alcohol problems, but again, people around me did. And that is just the truth, and Tony Robbins would say you do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure. He's right, so I was running from being blind, broke, and alcoholic. And that was the original piece of it. And then as time progressed, there's moments I felt sorry for myself when I stopped being able to ski for a little bit, for a year. And then I recreated all that. There were some moments where I certainly felt bad, sad for myself and cried for myself when I was 22 and didn't get drafted to play professional baseball because of my eye condition. But I realized, I guess, foundationally, seeing my grandfather and how strong he was and how much he did, and also, what would Batman do? What would James Bond do? What would Muhammad Ali do? What would Herb Brooks and the Miracle on Ice do? I had all these frameworks. What would Coach Ennis, Coach Woods do? Like my grandmother, was a woman who went back to becoming a realtor and, with 5 kids, and they put them through private schools. My grandfather went blind, had a stroke, taking 100,000 milligrams a day of vitamin A, trying to not go blind. I just had all these models around me and nobody quit. So it wasn't like Christine, like I had to overcome it. It literally just wasn't in it. Like it's just not what the people around me did. So I was blessed by the proximity to all these heroic figures who may not have achieved massive financial success, but they just did the things. They just did the things and they served with integrity at the highest levels. So I just did what they did. So I was really blessed.
Wow, got it. Thanks again. One final question to wrap us up that I like to complete every podcast with is, again, from the perspective that you sit right now, what's the biggest myth, like the biggest, fattest lie that you're seeing all the time that, if you could put it on a billboard or could scream from a mountaintop, you'd say, that's not true?
About the world or about me?
Just a myth in the world that you confront or see all the time.
Sure, that you can't have money, time, and magic. It's just a lie. And I own that lie, that you have to compromise things in the long run, your integrity, your life, the things you love to have money and time, freedom, and impact in the world. That is just absolutely unequivocally not true. You have to do it for a little bit. You go through an arduous phase that leads into momentum and abundance with the power of this work and formula. And that's my life's work. It is just a lie this is going to be super controversial. I'm a blind man, so I hope this gives me some right to say it and people could shoot arrows at my head for it. 75% of blind people are unemployed. Home ownership is magically disproportionate in the blindness community, but here's the reality. Here's the truth. I am not a statistic and you are not a statistic. Oprah Winfrey, Black woman, massive gender bias, massive racial bias. I am present to it. Massive challenges in the world, but never buy into the fact that you're a statistic. It is the greatest way to destroy your life. And people want you to see that. There's groups of people who benefit by you being a statistic and seeing yourself through that prism. And that is horrifying to me. And that's not a political statement. That's not a right or left statement. It's a factual statement that people make money having people be disempowered. I want to empower people.
Amen. Sean, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today. I can't wait to see you in a few weeks. And I'll say it again, thank you for the work that you do. And thank you for having such a big, bold mission to make so many good changes to so many people's lives so that they don't have any reason to be a statistic.
Thank you. And thank you for doing the work and great work out there, Christina, you do, because I know that you and me and everybody out there who can make impact has exhaustion, takes arrows, is frustrated. And I believe it's all worth it. Thank you for who you are in the world, Christina, and for everybody who is listening today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Sean.
So that's it for this episode of the Wealthy Wellthy Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. But before you go, I want to offer you the opportunity to test your money IQ by taking my 2-minute money quiz that tests your financial literacy. It's only 10 short questions, but I promise it will make you think. The average score is 33% out of 100. Do you think you can beat that average? But wait, there's more. Beyond just testing your financial IQ, you'll receive a free How Much Is Enough worksheet, which is a step-by-step guide to help you determine where you are on the financial freedom track. This is the exact work I do with my VIP clients. Take the quiz and let me know how you score. Just go to Christina.com/quiz. That's Christina with a K and 2 S's, like kiss. Again, that's Christina, KRISSTINA.com/quiz to test your money IQ.